This is actually the video that I intended to make on Wednesday, but then this figure didn't show up for like an entire extra week after it was supposed to, arriving way too late to be in the last video. God, Hasbro Pulse, you just suck at your jobs. You are the first-party supplier, and you are always sold out. Your shipping is higher than your competition when they have to get it from you in the first place, so their costs are even worse, and yet they are still doing better than you, and then your shipping takes longer than them too. So what are we paying for? And you can't even be bothered to do worldwide releasing, so everyone in just about any other country just has to hope to find your products locally, usually months to a full year after the US or more. How are you this bad at doing such a simple job? Having a website like this should be the cheapest, easiest money you've ever made, and yet I find myself groaning every time I realize you have a product that I want. And then the stupid search function on your damn site doesn't work either. Anyways, today I look at a flat redeco of the worst fossilizer. It's Generation Select's Tricranius. And you may be asking why I bought this when I've made no secret of my distaste for the Ractinite mold. And my only response is, oh, he looks so fucking cool. Oh, so cool. I like shiny things, you know this, and I like see-through plastic, and this is doing absolutely everything for me. Oh my god, he's so cool. Normally, Ractinite looks like a dude with a severely wide torso, but here, with the onyx and red and gold, now he looks like he's wearing a black leather jacket and a bandana. Along with the build, I'm getting real Terminator vibes. The legs are still goofy, and they really needed a forward and back tilt at the foot, but the majority of my problems with this figure's build are resolved by just having way cooler colors. They say black is slimming, and yeah, I buy that looking at this thing's sleeker feeling build, but the red and yellow underneath this guy's ribs makes it look like he's containing an inferno in the furnace of his torso. Like he's about ready to belch some flames on his foes, or use the energy inside to superheat his weapons. Still a desperate lack of hands on this boy though. I know I called this a flat redeco earlier, but it's actually not, so I think they should have done something about this. They clearly want you to pretend that these are cool going by the box, which in typical Gen Selects fashion is really boring. On the outside at least. But on the inside, there is this absolutely sick art depicting them using these as giant blasters. That could have been real cool if maybe these pegs were set up to use blast effects, but they aren't. And besides that, they clearly used a lot of artistic liberty to make the arms look bigger and more intimidating than the weedy little things they actually are. I think I know why they put this on the inside of the box, because if it were on the outside, then this is what they would call lying your fucking asses off. Anyways, this is a retool, but like one of the weirdest, most underwhelming ones I've ever heard of. What they've done is they've taken the head frill off the Styracosaurus, which was already a removable part, and then they've replaced it with the frill of a Triceratops. Wow, so different. I can't believe they went to all the trouble of filling in 2 holes and attaching the horns to the front rather than the edges. Will the wonders of this retool never cease? They didn't even change either of the heads, just gave one of them a new hat. But I'm gonna be real here, the Triceratops is absolutely a better dino than the Styracosaurus. Fight me. They're both Triceratopses, just one liked to make jokes about the other one overcompensating with its horns, and then the other one gored that one to death with its overcompensating horns, and that's why the Styracosauruses went extinct. Triceratopses are extinct because of the war they had with T-Rexes over who was the cooler dinosaur, where they unleashed their full nuclear arsenals, knocking up so much dust into the air that it caused an ice age. And now you've been learned. God, that might be the most insane tangent I've ever gone off on. I don't know what more to say about the look of this thing other than to continue gushing about how cool the new colors are. There's just something about the child brain in my idiot head that likes transparent things. And then the edgy teen layered on top of that loves the black and red. And then the immature adult layered on top of them appreciates Dinoman. Though I would hope that everyone trapped in my head appreciates that. Is there a gas leak in my house right now? Why is this turning out this way? Am I loopy, or is this just the result of me talking about a figure I've covered before who's had no real changes done to it? Like for instance, take the head sculpt. It's the exact same thing as ever, and yet 100,000 times cooler. I don't even know what they were going for with the original. It's like they got late into the design and realized they just made a featureless mush and then tried to imply that it had a face mask by just coloring some of it black. This, in its singular black for its visage, feels more cohesive, and the piercing yellow glow of his eyes, like blazing embers within his skull, hit like a truck, as well as the helmet encapsulating the whole thing, just puts it into a neat little extravagant bow. I love the proud little maximal symbol on the cheek. That was really missing from most of the Kingdom figures. But it does also drive my OCD crazy. Rhinox in the show had one on each side of his head, so why not here too? I know that the Kingdom Rhinox didn't have them at all, but that thing sucked. We don't talk about him. And you know me, I really hate light piping, but I must admit it hits a little different when it's everything piping. I like how this highlights every crevice, giving him reverse panel lining, or I guess would that technically be circuit laced? So the look of this thing is way cooler than the original. I mean, I kind of hated that thing, it just had nothing going for it. It didn't have a face, its colors were boring, none of the details stood out because it was all the same, it had skinny limbs holding up a fat body like an apple standing on toothpicks, and it had no hands. This also doesn't have a face. Instead, it's got a black void of nightmares with eyes peering at you from out of the abyss shrouded in a vortex of flames. This has an awesome paint job where everything stands out because they put it all in contrasting colors, and I've said it before, black and red, always a crowd pleaser. Though I don't know if it makes for good maximal colors, especially with it being pretty evil looking. The body is still fat, and the limbs are still skinny, but it feels less so because of the new layout. And it still has no hands, but the way the arms turn red right where the hands would be kind of tricks you. At a glance, you think fists. And I should point out that all of his joints feel tighter and better than on the normal figure, who could have some looseness here or there. So on the looks front, this thing kind of erases the Ractinite from reality. Like, why does that thing exist when this does? Sure, having kind of realistic dino skeletons is cool and all, but I almost wonder if these would have sold better if they were all in these bonkers colors. You gotta admit they'd be at least more eye-catching in the store, even though this wasn't sold in stores. Accessories are kind of a big change, and something of maybe a step up. You'll see what I mean. For starters, he's got his normal tail weapon, this time in an even softer rubber, likely due to it being transparent, but with its new clear colors, it looks a lot cooler, like an energy weapon of some sort, kind of a lightsaber thing. Honestly, with the helmet and dark colors and all, this feels kind of like a fat red Darth Vader. But then he comes with a whole slew of blast effects, and normally I'm all about getting more blast effects, but honestly, these were what was keeping me from buying this figure until now. They're all in these ugly pastel colors, and I'm just left wondering what am I going to use these for? They don't look cool. A gun doesn't look like it's firing these Mountain Dew Baja Blast and Hawaiian Punch colors. If these were done in the same style as the figure itself, I'd be all over them. But they aren't, and the whole set feels kind of worthless because of it. And 2 of them came broken. They found a way to break rubber, people. Why am I paying an extra 10 to 12 bucks for a bunch of useless effect pieces because you cast them in these shitty colors? Whose idea was this, and why did no one slap them when they suggested it? Last time I reviewed Ractonite, I didn't talk about the weaponizing because it really sucks. But this time, I'm not going to be doing an articulation segment or a transformation since you've all seen that before. So despite how much it boils my blood to do something this pointless, I will show off all of his terrible, shitty beyond belief weapon modes. Starting with, it's kind of a lance thing. Maybe. Like one of those stupid cartoon jousting ones that didn't really exist on a battlefield and were only used in sporting events. It gets heavier towards the back to add a lot of weight for some reason. Check it out, it's a pair of back-mounted legs with spikes in the feet. The legs are as stumpy as ever, so they don't have a lot of range. Check it out, you can have the head of a dinosaur. To have a dinosaur head. How is this an official weapon? Lastly, you have a big, stupid, ridiculously oversized hammer. Look, I can pretend that the bones are emitting lasers or heat or whatever to let them cut through metal. I can't exactly make the same headcanon for blunt force trauma. Either you are using someone's robot organs to wall up an enemy, most likely doing damage to your weaponizer teammate, but they are made out of metal, so maybe they can take some level of abuse. Or you are doing the exact same thing, but they're made out of bone and they're going to shatter on impact, because you can't use cutting with lasers or heat to impart blunt force trauma. This is why I didn't show you this thing's weaponizing last time, because it's really fucking dumb. So accessories maybe kinda suck. His main weapon is okay, but this thing is 50% more expensive because of a bunch of blast effects that are something I've absolutely been asking for since the start of Siege, and are also useless because it feels like they were giving us the middle finger. Oh, you want a bunch of blast effects to come with your figures? Well, fuck you! Here's a ton with shitty colors. And then the weaponizing is just as trash as it's always been. Like I said, no posing segment this time. But to reiterate, it's awkward and doesn't feel great despite the better tolerances making it at least a nicer experience than the normal one, as I find it stands a bit more easily. And no transformation. But also, it's lame, barely does anything, and the front legs were a terrible idea. And the alt mode is remarkably lesser. It's not terrible, but somehow this becomes very dominated by the black in this mode. The red and yellow feel like they somehow managed to vanish from everywhere but the head and part of the butt. I'll take this any day over the Ractonite like this, but it is somehow so much less interesting than the robot mode. They really needed to figure out how to incorporate the torso hinge here so you can extend all this red out and make it feel way more alive that way. And man, the front legs are just terrible. They feel awful, they're so static, they basically have knee bends and that's it. Give me some splay, give me something to work with here. So I think this mode is better than the original, but that's not saying much. It's decent, it holds better, it feels better, it looks way better, but it doesn't hold a candle to the robot mode becoming so much less awesome. And overall, I just don't know if I can recommend this thing. It looks sick as fuck, and it feels a lot better. But at its core, it's still Ractonite, one of the worst figures of Kingdom. An awkward figure with a great many flaws and a bad transformation who has no redeeming qualities stemming from its weaponizing. And it's a whole 10 bucks more plus tax, plus it's an online exclusive, so there are shipping fees making this even more expensive. Maybe if you don't find the colors of the blast effects as much of a flaw as me, then you can justify spending the extra amount. Otherwise, if you want this for looking as cool as it does, then try to find a way to get it cheaper. Because if this was deluxe price, I would be recommending it. It looks sick as hell and it can justify itself on that alone. But not at a price higher than a Voyager. I don't know why they picked this mold to upgrade like this. And that's not half what I have to say, but it's enough what I have to say. And I know, you know, what everyone else tells you to do at the end of these videos. So, if you liked what you saw here, please do that. And if you'd like to take it a step further, then please, share this video with any friend you think may be interested. I hope you all enjoyed listening to me waste your time.